We were referred to as primitive, the golden robes of the Galactic Accord, and we were referred to as an emerging species by floating cities. A courteous affront that actually signified inferior, feeble, and expendable. Not even a seat was provided for us at their big table, only a place in the crowd where we could nod and clap like loyal companions. The first time they made fun of us, I was present. I laughed literally, not metaphorically. It happened during a weaponry protest during the yearly security summit of the Accord. We had 5 minutes to introduce Earth's most recent defensive mechanism. We acted like a sideshow act for 5 minutes. The others, the Illith, with bio-coded warbeasts and Thurikians, with their plasma crescent, had whole hours. Simulations, holograms, and fully immersive displays. We received a countdown timer. I recall being next to General Dorn, the type of man who had long since buried his feelings in the sands of a battleground. His uniform fit him like a glove. Tight, accurate, each medal was purchased with blood. Back then, I was merely a translator, not even in the battle room, as it were. However, the general was looking for someone with more than simply verbal interpretation skills. Anyone was able to discern the disdain and snarl beneath those extraterrestrial eyes. When we introduced the Vanguard Protocol, a sleek a satellite system that is tucked down beyond the moon, the room was packed with snickering. A delegate even inquired as to whether it was a weather balloon. Another pondered out loud as if it were some old joke that humans had finally figured out: nuclear fusion. The snake-slim, translucent-skinned Althean ambassador clapped sarcastically. General Dorn remained silent. He didn't have to. All he did was tap his datapad and watch. Then everything was different. Orbital feed screens came on one by one, real-time, not a model or simulation video. When the Vanguard array came into operation, the galaxy saw what people had actually been constructing. Not merely a defense system, but a death grid on a global scale. Lasers that twisted via magnetospheres, tank-sized kinetic projectiles fired from railguns. Anything synthetic or organic might be deconstructed in less than a minute by nanoclouds. The guns weren't the only thing. It was the speed, accuracy, and ruthless icy efficiency. In less than 30 seconds, in a simulated cleaning of Earth's orbit, the Vanguard array destroyed more than 700 enemy vessels. For clarity, each is indicated with extraterrestrial symbols rather than merely hypothetical targets. Actual battleships reproduced in great detail from fleet specifications that are known to the public. Then we really dropped the bomb. We had conducted tests, Vanguard, in a real fight, not in simulations. Dorn showed video from 2 weeks prior, footage from each Accord channel that had been cleaned up. A Hertz space had been breached by the Theorokian Black Ops fleet, silently testing our defenses. The Accord had referred to it as rogue and denied any knowledge of it. Components, however, the feed was indisputable. 27 enemy cruisers had sailed into our environment. Not one reached the exosphere. One by one, they were removed. One transmission was sent, but it was done so quickly and fiercely. Before static, there was a single scream. Suddenly, nobody was giggling. It became so quiet in the room that I could hear my own take a breath. The Althean envoy who had previously clapped flinched, his looking quickly at the exits. The lips of the Therian delegate hung open. Even the out-loud mechanical races that were not meant to be afraid started recalculating probability, reevaluating the estimated threat assessment. Human military prowess, unconventional, high chance of anomalies, reassessing. General Dorn remained still, he declared. This isn't a threat, this is a warning. I had never seen power in its true form before then. In silence, not only in weapons and satellites, but in the lack of conceit. We didn't have to yell. There was no need to beg. We demonstrated, give them the blade, and let them envision how it might be used. And ever since that day, nobody laughed once more at Earth. There was a deafening hush after our presentation. Not because there was no sound in the room, but rather, because of the typical conversation, the sarcastic remarks, the arrogant remarks of races that had never experienced actual combat had vanished. And the Accord noticed something unexpected in that void of conceit. Fear. But since terror wanes, it wasn't enough. It is contested, justified, transformed into misconceptions and falsehoods. General Dorn ensured that they would never forget, in order to upload the Vanguard's secret records to the Accord's protected networks. Information they never thought we would have. Their initial response was one of accusation. With his voice quivering behind his titanium jaw, the Theon military minister yelled, "This is stolen technology. Plates, your species isn't capable of this kind of coordination. Interstellar was recently attained by your sort. Propulsion." Dorn stared at the charge without blinking. "Since we didn't raise our hand, you presume we're behind. You're not correct?" We were silently observing and getting ready. "Although we mastered our satellites, and you mocked at our rockets, we charted your fleets while you dispatched spies. The most detrimental aspect for it was true of them. Convention was never the end for humans. We aren't the type to adhere to cosmic standards. The Accord's bureaucratic warfare and military rankings never appealed to us. We didn't construct ships for fashion. Our purpose was to kill. We didn't make our weaponry for show. They were made with the sole intent of winning. But to win, you had to learn more. Beyond the battlefield alone, it means being aware of the human and enemy before the first shot was fired. We were more adept at observing than anyone had anticipated. I recall the subsequent events because it altered everything. Turning to face me, Dorn replied, "Initiate Protocol V2. Unsure if he was serious, I hesitated. He gave me that icy steel stare. As I entered the command into my tablet at this point, the Accord Chamber's screens flickered before the actual presentation of Earth's military dossiers took place. All the animals were sitting in one chamber. There was more to it than hypothetical intelligence. It was a thorough, brutal investigation of their armor system's weaknesses, structural defects in flagship designs, and command personnel's psychological weaknesses, a hierarchy. We had deciphered their codes, seen their logs, and heard there for years. They were unaware that calls were encrypted. All of the room's power was naked in each other's presence. Panic spread quickly. Typically, the Ultrax, calm and collected, began talking quickly over one another. The calmly coordinated hive mind strategists, known as Vitheri, split into shouting and confusion. The guards of the Accord, those arrogant golden-armored sentinels, reflexively snatched up their firearms, not even sure where the threat was coming from. We weren't finished, though. Dorn, General, moved forward and said a single word: illustration. The AI system in the room took a while to react. The ground underneath us rumbled. A hologram appeared. Not merely a map, but a strategic model of an battlefield in action. Aurora 6 is a mining colony that is jointly we had no formal relationship to the planet, which was owned by 4 Accord states. Yet Vanguard did. What transpired 3 days prior was depicted in the simulation. Aurora 6 had been assaulted by a coalition of pirates, including some former Accord mercenaries. Rogue. The Council's answer was delayed, too costly, too far away, and not worth the danger. Thus, Earth stepped in without notice or consent. Under the age of 11 minutes, the command center of the Vanguard, silently and covertly, circling Aurora 6, its instruments were put into action. The sonic pulse rendered ground soldiers inoperable. Targeted EMP blasts ripped airships from the sky. Not one the colony's construction was touched. Civilians were not hurt. After being destroyed and taken into custody, the pirates were delivered, bringing a straightforward message to their home worlds. Disorder is not tolerated on Earth. Power was no longer the only factor. Control and demonstrating to the cosmos what mankind was capable of, delivering force with surgical accuracy at any time or place. No alert, no speeches, only outcomes. That was just what Dorn desired. Disconnecting its diplomatic node, the Viteri hive mind asked for all